From an early age, you were taught that feeling is what makes us human, that caring, giving, and being moved is proof of strength. But this is the biggest lie ever told. The more you care, the more predictable you become. And predictability is synonymous with control. Machiavelli already warned, the world is not driven by ideals, but by strategies. And in this game, it's not those who feel the most who win, but those who know how to control their own emotions. The pleasure of feeling nothing isn't empty. It's the power to become unattainable, to break the invisible chains that have always held you hostage. Throughout this video, you'll understand how excessive caution opens the door to manipulation, how quick compliments and early vulnerability are bait used against you, and why, when emotion enters, logic disappears. You'll discover how silence creates a vacuum and breeds obsession, how strategic indifference transforms respect into magnetism, and how emotional detachment is the fortress that separates leaders from puppets. You'll see that in any social war, those who don't react control. That when it's impossible to be loved and feared, it's better to be feared. And that protecting your energy like a fortress is the only way to avoid being consumed. This is not a video for the faint of heart. It's a dive into dark strategies that few have the courage to apply. You'll understand how mystery and unpredictability break any influence, how emotional distance builds lasting power, and why the calmest always win in negotiations, relationships, and in life. And in the end, you'll discover the key that Machiavelli always hinted at, but that almost no one understood. True empire is born within. The new code is simple and brutal. Only give presence to what builds power and protects peace. And when you master it, there will be no one left capable of manipulating your soul. He always believed that showing excessive care was a virtue, but he didn't realize that in practice, this turned him into an open book. Those who give too much of themselves without filtering make it clear to the world where their weaknesses lie. And in the game of life, predictability is like handing the map to your fortress to the enemy. It's curious to note that even Machiavelli warned of the risks of confusing virtue with naivete. Politics, guided by reality, not ideals, teaches that those who expose their feelings without measure offer weapons to those who wish to use them against them. A practical example? That friend who always answers any call at any time. Sooner or later, they become available on call, and others begin to expect this behavior from them. Excessive zeal, which seemed like kindness, becomes strategic weakness. Life shows that in many scenarios, the end justifies the means, and protecting yourself from over-delivering is wiser than it seems. See how it happens in relationships. The person who gives too much of themselves, always worried about pleasing, ends up becoming predictable in their reactions. Their partner already knows that threatening to leave is enough for them to chase after them, apologizing even for things they didn't do. This is handing over the steering wheel of their own energy. Better to be feared than loved, said Machiavelli, when you can't be both. And it's not about becoming a tyrant, but about not allowing the fear of loss to control your dignity. Excessive caution removes mystery and turns the individual into an emotional puppet. Think about how a job negotiation works. If the candidate shows desperation from the start, the employer controls the game. The lesson is clear. Predictability weakens, strategic coolness protects. The curious thing is that many confuse caring with emotional dependence. Those who care too much are usually more concerned with being accepted than with building respect. But respect is born of strength, not fragility. Virtue and fortune, remember? There's no point in having luck if you lack the inner strength to balance surrender. The calculated use of strength lies precisely in knowing where to give attention and where to withdraw. Excessive caring transforms any relationship into a territory controlled by the other. Have you ever noticed how strict teachers at school generated more discipline than those who tried to be friends? Loyal, self-contained armies are not born of predictability. but of the ability to maintain silent authority. Predictability is the first link in the chain of control, and when the other person discovers how you react, the next stage unfolds, mastery through your own emotions. The truth is simple. Those who can predict their actions control their choices. It seems exaggerated, but observe it in everyday life. If a boss knows you never say no, they'll always push extra work onto you. If a partner discovers that a sad face is enough to make you give in, they'll use that as a tool. And so, your predictability becomes the leash that guides your decisions. Machiavelli once said that decisions based on real human nature are more effective than those based on ideals, and human nature is opportunistic. When you act automatically, without changing the pace, without creating pauses, you leave room for others to manipulate your rhythm. It's like playing chess and always moving the same pawn. Sooner or later, your opponent delivers checkmate, knowing exactly where you're going to land. Think about politicians, leaders, or even influencers. Those who maintain the same predictable, linear narrative are quickly dismantled by critics. Those who practice constant adaptability, changing course without losing their bearings, are the ones who remain in power the longest. Politics guided by reality, not ideals, works like this. Those who don't surprise, obey. Predictability is the password others use to enter your emotional world. Consider the love story. The predictable boyfriend who always sends flowers on the same date is seen as a robot. Surprise, mystery is what keeps interest alive. It's not apathy, it's strategy. After all, if everyone can predict your reactions, you're not leading the game. You're just a pawn on someone's board. Control arises from this logic. Those who anticipate govern. And this is where the better to be feared than loved takes on a new nuance. It's not about spreading fear, but about showing that your reactions are not easily manipulated. It's the same thing that happens in multi-million-dollar negotiations. The side that doesn't reveal anxiety controls the pace. Have you ever noticed how big investors, when pressured by journalists, smile and change the subject? It's the art of unpredictability in action. Virtue and fortune go hand in hand. Virtue to maintain emotional discipline, fortune to seize opportunities that arise. The calculated use of force is knowing when to surprise with silence, when to retreat, and when to act. Predictability is the password that gives away your mind, but silence, silence, that opens a new door that few dare to cross. Silence is more than the absence of words. It's a weapon. Those who learn not to react immediately become masters of time and space in the conversation. While the other person exhausts themselves trying to elicit a response, you observe, calculate, and conserve energy. Machiavelli would call this a calculated use of force, not because you have nothing to say, but because you understand that every word is currency. Politics guided by reality, not ideals, shows that talking too much is handing over ammunition. How often in a meeting does the person who remains silent, simply observing, seem to be the most respected? This happens because silence creates expectation. The end justifies the means, and sometimes the most powerful means is simply to shut your mouth and let others reveal themselves. In the personal realm, silence acts as a mirror. When you don't react to a provocation, the other person's insecurity shows. It's as if you've removed the fuel from the fire. It's better to be feared than loved. Those who don't react easily inspire respect, even a certain fear. Have you ever noticed how, in family arguments, the one who shouts the loudest is usually at a disadvantage? The calmest, who remains firm and quiet, is the one who truly sets the pace. Loyal armies are built this way, not by the rush to react, but by the discipline of restraint. Non-reaction disarms manipulators, dismantles emotional blackmail, and creates a playing field where you rule. It's like playing poker. Those who maintain a neutral face force others to reveal their cards prematurely. But silence shouldn't be confused with apathy. It's active, strategic, almost like an invisible investment. Virtue and fortune meet here. Virtue to hold one's tongue, fortune to reap the rewards of clearly made decisions. Imagine a salary negotiation. If you remain silent after the proposal, the other party's anxiety grows, and the offer often improves. The lack of reaction is leverage because it creates a vacuum, and human beings hate a vacuum. This discomfort forces the other person to move, to give more, to reveal themselves beyond what is necessary. Silence, when used wisely, becomes a fortress. And every time you fail to react, you open the door to observing something greater. How emotional investment, when left unregulated, becomes a gateway to manipulation. Every time someone becomes emotionally involved beyond measure, they open an invisible door to control. What should be affection becomes dependence, and dependence is the breeding ground for manipulation. Machiavelli already showed that politics guided by reality, not ideals, requires understanding human nature as it is, self-serving, calculating, and often selfish. The end justifies the means, and in the emotional realm, this means that those who overindulge give others an instruction manual on how to be manipulated. Think of that co-worker who always needs to be recognized, simply denying a compliment and they crumble, becoming malleable. Excessive emotional investment works like giving the password to your own safe to someone who doesn't deserve it. And when this fragility is perceived, control sets in like an addiction. Consider romantic relationships. Those who place all their chips on the other, forgetting about themselves, create an unbalanced power dynamic. They begin to live according to what their partner feels, wants, or thinks. It's better to be feared than loved here, because respect arises from autonomy, not blind surrender. Virtue and fortune meet when someone learns to balance, showing affection without sacrificing themselves, giving attention without losing themselves. But many confuse dedication with emotional slavery. Loyal armies don't follow leaders desperate for affection. They follow those who stand firm, even in the face of rejection. It's like financial investments. Putting all your money into a single stock is asking to be swallowed up by the market. Diversifying is protecting yourself. The same goes for emotional energy. Disproportionate emotional investment always becomes a preparation for manipulation because it gives the other person power that should be non-transferable. The calculated use of force in this case is precisely choosing where to place your emotions without exhausting yourself. Think of friendships that only work when you call first, ask first, care first. This isn't friendship, it's dependence in disguise. Constant adaptability requires you to learn to observe who is truly there for you and who merely feeds off your energy. And more. How can you prevent your intensity from becoming a tool against you? This is the silent trap. And like every trap, it needs bait. And emotional bait often comes disguised as quick compliments and early vulnerabilities. Manipulation rarely begins with a direct attack. It begins with sugar. Quick compliments given too soon are like bait thrown into the water. The fish bites because they think they've found easy food. Anyone who knows Machiavelli understands. Politics guided by reality, not ideals, shows that nothing is as innocent as it seems. The end justifies the means, and many use praise as a means to gain access to your trust. How many times has someone you barely know said, "You're incredible, I've never met anyone like you"? That phrase sounds like a gift, but it's the packaging for poison. And if you swallow it without question, you create an invisible debt with the person who threw the bait. Early vulnerability is another trick, revealing supposed pain early on to generate closeness and thus create space to control the narrative. It's easy to fall into this trap because the ego loves to be fed. who doesn't like being told they're special. But the difference between those who fall and those who escape lies in understanding the nature of the bait. Better to be feared than loved comes into play here. Those who aren't dazzled by immediate applause convey the message that they won't be controlled by cheap praise. Virtue and fortune reveal themselves when you can distinguish between true recognition, the fruit of coexistence, and premature praise, used as a tool for capture. Loyal, self-made armies don't follow leaders who sell themselves through flattery. In the professional environment, for example, how many managers have promoted the wrong employees simply because they were flattered? The result? Chaos and loss of authority. Those who don't see the bait lose the game. Early vulnerability works the same way. When someone opens up too quickly, revealing personal secrets in just a few minutes of conversation, it seems like a sign of trust, but it's often calculated. The calculated use of force here is to offer the other a false sense of intimacy to capture them. Constant adaptability means realizing that not all emotional openness is sincere. The manipulator reveals fragility early to reap yours in return. And once you reveal your intimate pain, you become hostage to the game. It's like a poker game. If you show your cards too early, the other person controls the table. The emotional bait always presents itself as a gift, but those with trained eyes spot the hidden hook. And if emotion enters too quickly, logic is the first to go. Emotion is like strong wine. A glass can warm, but too much can dull the vision. When the heart takes the wheel, the mind loses its way. Machiavelli observed that decisions based on true human nature show how men are guided more by their feelings than by their thoughts. And at this point, logic doesn't disappear. It's merely drowned out by internal noise. The end justifies the means applies even here. Whoever manages to arouse emotion in others already has half the victory. Consider political speeches. All it takes is to raise banners that evoke fear or hope, and millions forget to evaluate the facts. Emotion is the shortcut to control because it displaces reason from the center. He who remains cool in the face of applause or attacks has the advantage, because those who shout don't think, they only react. This is also true in the personal realm. How many impulsive purchases were made because the feeling of "I deserve it" prevailed over financial logic? Or how many couples reconciled simply because they were burning with longing, ignoring all signs of incompatibility? Better to be feared than loved makes sense here. It's not about spreading fear, but about respecting yourself enough to not give in to the immediate emotions of others. Virtue and fortune come together when someone can observe themselves from the outside as a spectator before acting. The calculated use of force is to avoid giving the opponent emotional ammunition. It's like in arguments. Those who get excited lose. Those who remain calm steer. If emotion is fuel, logic is the steering wheel. Those who drive without a steering wheel are always ready for an accident. This is why so many manipulations begin with the intention of generating rapid emotion, whether with praise or provocation. The manipulator knows that if you feel excessive anger, love, or fear, your rational defenses will break down. Constant adaptability, in this case, means recognizing the trigger and interrupting the narrative before it escalates. Practical examples? Receiving a provocative message and not responding immediately, negotiating a contract and asking for time to think instead of signing in the heat of the moment. Loyal, self-made armies follow leaders who know when to wait, not those who explode at the first spark. And here a hidden power emerges: strategic indifference. It's not about inhuman coldness, but about choosing where, when, and with whom to expend energy. Strategic indifference is not apathy. It's intelligence applied to the emotional realm. Machiavelli would say it's about politics guided by reality, not ideals. choosing where to put energy and, more importantly, where not to. The end justifies the means here too, and the means is often calculated silence. Those who practice strategic indifference don't react to every provocation, don't waste time on petty disputes, don't exhaust themselves trying to please. They're like a general who doesn't send his own loyal armies into pointless battles. In everyday life, this means not arguing about politics in WhatsApp groups, not justifying every personal choice, not trying to correct every misunderstanding. This posture creates an aura of strength and mystery, and the more you select your battlefields, the more energy you have left for victories that truly matter. The common misconception is that indifference is absolute coldness, but it isn't. It's a calculated use of force, reacting only where there's a proportional return. It's like an investor who doesn't invest in any opportunity, but analyzes before acting. Virtue and fortune meet here, because virtue is maintaining emotional discipline, and fortune is being in the right place when the opportunity arises. Strategic indifference isn't failing to feel, it's feeling and still choosing not to react. Imagine a meeting where everyone is trying to prove who's the smartest. The wise man observes silently, speaks only at the right moment, and is remembered as the one who brought clarity. Better to be feared than loved is reflected in this game. Those who aren't driven by a need for approval inspire silent respect. The power of strategic indifference is that it creates psychological imbalance in the other person. The manipulator waits for you to take the bait, to react to false praise or harsh criticism. When you don't respond as expected, they lose control of the script. Constant adaptability means remaining firm even when the pressure mounts. This is most evident in romantic relationships. When someone realizes they can't control their emotions, they change tactics and often become more respectful. Indifference acts as a filter. It eliminates noise and values what's essential. Loyal armies are formed by those who know where they're looking and what they're ignoring. This stance sets the stage for the next lesson, understanding that it's not apathy, it's simply choosing wisely where to spend energy. Many confuse indifference with apathy, but there's a chasm between the two. Apathy arises from weakness, from those who don't feel because they've given up on life. Consciously choosing where to expend energy is an act of strength, almost an internal code of power. Machiavelli would remind us that politics guided by reality, not ideals, requires distinguishing between what's worth fighting for and what's just a distraction. The end justifies the means, and the most efficient means in many cases is to save energy for meaningful battles. Imagine a warrior who draws his sword at the slightest shadow. He'll soon be exhausted, vulnerable, and out of ammunition. Loyal armies only follow leaders who know when to strike and when to wait. In life, this means not responding to trivial provocations, not being consumed by other people's opinions, and not wasting energy on debates that change nothing. Energy selection is like financial investment. Those who throw money at any bet end up poor. Those who choose carefully build wealth. The same goes for emotions. Virtue and fortune come together when you have the discipline to ignore what doesn't matter, and the luck to be present when something truly important happens. The calculated use of force means acting with intensity at the right moment, not wasting gunpowder on useless fireworks. Better to be feared than loved applies here. Respect is born when people realize you don't succumb to any emotional appeal. In practice, it's a choice. Is it worth discussing that nasty comment? Is it worth persisting with someone who has already shown disinterest? Selection creates clarity, and clarity is power. Constant adaptability serves as a compass in this process. The world changes, people change, and what yesterday deserved your energy may no longer do so today. This isn't about becoming a rock, but learning to protect your own fortress. Loyal, self-sufficient armies are built this way by eliminating unnecessary battles to focus strength on those that define the future. And remember, attention is currency. Where you place your attention, you place your life. Therefore, conscious selection is the filter that separates the essential from the disposable. Those who learn this art gain time, peace, and power. And the power that arises from this self-control opens the door to another essential element: mystery. Because when you decide where to spend your energy, you also create space for something even more valuable: the unpredictability that breaks the influence of others. Mystery is what keeps people alert. Those who reveal everything about themselves become predictable. And predictability, as we've seen, is the shortest path to control. Machiavelli taught that politics guided by reality, not ideals, requires always maintaining a shadow of doubt about one's intentions. The end justifies the means, and sometimes the most effective means is simply to remain completely inconspicuous. When you maintain an air of mystery, others have to spend energy trying to guess your next moves. This breaks influence, because those busy trying to decipher you don't have time to manipulate you. It's like in chess. The strongest move isn't the one everyone sees, but the one no one expected. Mystery isn't weakness. It's a survival strategy. Unpredictability is a cousin of mystery. While the former creates doubt, the latter creates unexpected movement. Better to be feared than loved fits here, because fear isn't born of violence, but of uncertainty. The unpredictable leader is respected because no one knows when he'll show up. The unpredictable negotiator controls the pace because no one knows his next move. Virtue and fortune go hand in hand in this regard. Virtue is having the discipline to avoid repeating oneself. Fortune is seizing the opportunities opened by the unexpected. Loyal, dedicated armies follow leaders who know how to surprise. Think of the great military strategists. They never attacked the same route twice. This ability to keep others in the dark is what makes an individual unattainable. In everyday life, mystery can be applied in simple ways. Not responding to messages immediately, not sharing every detail of your life, changing routines when necessary. This isn't dirty play, it's the calculated use of force. Constant adaptability is the essence of this practice, because only those who know how to move outside of the expected remain beyond the control of others. Mystery is like smoke. The more one tries to grasp it, the more it slips through their fingers. It's at this point that the influence of others breaks, because there are no hooks to manipulate those who won't let themselves be held. And when you become unpredictable, you open the door to another inevitable question. How can you let go emotionally without turning to stone, without losing your humanity in the process? Detachment is not the same as disconnecting from life. Many believe that detachment means becoming cold, insensitive, almost like stone, but in fact it's the opposite. Detachment is choosing not to be enslaved by one's emotions. Machiavelli taught that decisions based on true human nature require realizing that feeling is inevitable, but reacting is a choice. Politics guided by reality, not ideals, shows that no one wins internal battles by trying to be icy. The end justifies the means, and here the means is regulating emotions without denying them. You can feel anger and still not scream. You can feel fear and still move forward. You can feel love and still not be annihilated. Detachment is cultivating an inner garden where you tend the flowers without getting lost in the weeds. The difference lies between suppressing and regulating emotions. Suppressing is sweeping dust under the rug. Sooner or later, the whole house fills with dirt. Regulating is learning to clean up little by little, without denying what's there. Virtue and fortune meet here. Virtue is the discipline of observing your feelings without getting lost in them. Fortune is the relief that comes when you realize you don't need to react to everything. The calculated use of force is precisely this, accepting what you feel, but choosing how to express it. Loyal, self-made armies follow leaders who demonstrate humanity, not robots. After all, who hasn't cried in silence only to rise stronger the next day? Emotional detachment doesn't eliminate vulnerability, it merely prevents it from becoming a current. In practice, letting go without turning to stone involves clear steps, observing triggers without judgment, interrupting internal narratives that fuel pain, disappearing without guilt when necessary, staying focused on your mission, and adopting an emotional minimalism that separates the essential from the noise. Better to be feared than loved also applies here. Not because you must be cruel, but because your steadfastness inspires greater respect than the need to please. Constant adaptability is what keeps you human, yet free. And when someone tries to use your emotions against you, you discover there's no key to open an armored door. Letting go isn't about losing human warmth. It's about directing the fire to illuminate the right path. This process prepares you to understand the next level, how the absence of emotion in certain contexts transforms into power within social warfare. In any social arena, those who can remain calm win. Many people mistake the absence of emotion for coldness, but in reality, it's raw power. Machiavelli already intuited this when he stated that politics guided by reality, not ideals, requires recognizing that human beings react more to those who remain undeterred than to those who lose themselves in shouting. The end justifies the means, and in social warfare, the means is self-control. Observe political debates. Those who remain unfazed by provocations always seem more trustworthy, even if they don't have the best response. Emotional control is interpreted as strength. It's like in poker, those who maintain an impassive face rule the table, while others give themselves away with their looks. In validation environments, social media, work, relationships, the rule is clear. Those who don't react have an advantage. Better to be feared than loved echoes this logic, as respect is born from the difficulty of predicting your emotions. Virtue and fortune appear when you can remain silent while everyone waits for your despair. The calculated use of force is to not offer the other the emotion they seek. Think of a manipulator trying to provoke jealousy. If you show anger, they've won. If you react calmly and without emotion, you dismantle their script. Loyal armies of their own rally behind leaders who know when not to react, because they understand that every reaction is a surrender of power. Social warfare is a theater of energy. Those who control their emotions control the plot. Those who explode become mere supporting actors in someone else's narrative. Constant adaptability means knowing when to be a rock and when to be a river, but never letting others define your state. In the office, it's the employee who doesn't lose their cool in the face of an angry boss. In love, it's the one who doesn't respond with despair to someone else's silence. In business, it's the one who maintains a firm stance in the face of pressure. The absence of emotion creates a destabilizing vacuum. It's as if to say, nothing you do will control me. This vacuum generates respect and sometimes fear. But what happens when you can't balance both? This is where the classic lesson comes in. Better to be feared than loved when you can't be both. Machiavelli was blunt. If it's not possible to be loved and feared at the same time, it's better to be feared. Many turn up their noses at this phrase, finding it cruel, but he wasn't talking about violence, he was talking about respect. Politics guided by reality, not ideals, teaches that love is fragile, volatile, subject to mood and circumstances. Fear, understood as firm respect, is more constant. The end justifies the means, and in certain situations, the safest course is to show firmness before seeking affection. At work, for example, bosses who simply want to be loved end up losing authority. Employees laugh at jokes but ignore orders. A leader who inspires respect, even without being the most likable, maintains discipline. Love can generate comfort. Fear generates order. The secret lies in avoiding hatred. Better to be feared than loved doesn't mean cultivating enemies, but maintaining an aura of strength that prevents abuse. Virtue and fortune meet when you balance firmness with humanity, not being hated, but also not bowing to the desire to please. The calculated use of force comes into play here. It's like a father imposing limits. Children may not like it at the time, but this respect shapes character. Loyal armies don't follow generals who seek applause. They follow those who demonstrate clarity and discipline. Those who strive to be loved at all costs become prisoners of other people's opinions. Those who understand that respect comes before affection govern their own narrative. In everyday life, this translates into small actions, saying no when necessary, even if it hurts, maintaining silence instead of constantly justifying yourself, keeping promises even without excessive smiles. Constant adaptability means knowing when to give in to affection and when to build walls of respect. Love can open doors, but fear prevents them from pushing you out of your own home. And it is precisely this attitude that paves the way for the next principle, protecting your energy as if it were a fortress. Because if fear is a weapon against external manipulation, protecting your energy is a shield against internal wear and tear. Personal energy is like sacred territory. If it's not protected, it will be invaded. Those who don't establish boundaries live at the mercy of others, always exhausted, always drained. Machiavelli would say that politics guided by reality, not ideals, requires recognizing that each person has a limited reserve of attention and vitality. The end justifies the means, and in this case, the means is preserving what keeps you whole. Coldness acts as a filter. It's not an absence of feeling, but a gate that prevents emotional invaders from entering uninvited. Attention is currency, and every time you give it to those who don't deserve it, you impoverish yourself. Silence is leverage. It guards your strength and creates power. Those who speak little spend less. Those who defend themselves too much betray weakness. Your energy is your strength. Treat it as such. In everyday life, protecting energy means saying no firmly, even when they expect an automatic yes. It's choosing which battles to fight and which to simply walk away from. Virtue and fortune meet when you preserve your strength for what truly matters and let the rest dissipate into the wind. The calculated use of strength is not reacting to every provocation, not engaging in every argument, not trying to correct every misperception about you. Loyal, self-made armies only follow leaders who demonstrate this discipline. A leader who exhausts himself with every detail loses control. One who focuses energy on the central points inspires trust. Better to be feared than loved applies here. Respect is born from the realization that you don't exhaust yourself with anything. To react is to surrender the steering wheel of your own energy. Each time you explode, you give someone else the chance to control your direction. Constant adaptability requires knowing how to withdraw when necessary, not out of cowardice, but out of strategy. Think of how elite athletes conserve energy during a competition. They don't sprint every meter as if it were the finish line, but rather save power for the decisive moment. Your emotional life should work the same way. Silence protects, coolness filters, focused attention builds. And when this fortress is solid, power shifts. You stop being guided and start guiding. At this point, a curious phenomenon occurs. When you stop caring, others become obsessed. There's a powerful paradox. The less you care, the more attention you attract. It's as if silence creates a vacuum impossible to ignore. Machiavelli would say that politics guided by reality not ideals, shows that people desire precisely what they cannot control. The end justifies the means, and here the means is the absence of need. When you stop chasing, the other person starts running toward you. Think about relationships. Those who are always available soon become common. Those who learn to withdraw without guilt create uncertainty, and uncertainty breeds obsession. Human beings fear losing what they don't fully possess, and it's precisely this scarcity of attention, of presence, of response that transforms respect into fascination. Silence is a weapon that creates questions. When you don't answer, the other person's mind works on its own, inventing scenarios, testing hypotheses, fueling doubts. Better to be feared than loved fits here. Fear arises not from violence, but from the impossibility of predicting your next steps. Virtue and fortune reveal themselves when you can master this game without falling into arrogance. The calculated use of force is to withdraw at the right moment, without drama, without justification. Loyal, self-made armies stand firm because they know they don't depend on external validation to exist. Have you ever seen how an artist who disappears for a while returns more valued? Absence increases desire. Constant, unmysterious presence kills interest. Scarcity is the mother of respect. Constant adaptability means knowing how to balance proximity and distance as if it were a dance. It's not about manipulation, but about not giving everything away at once. Those who control the pace create value. When you don't react immediately, you create space for others to miss you. When you don't give away all the answers, you generate curiosity. And when you don't care about being loved every second, you achieve something even greater: authority. Silence, which seemed empty, reveals itself as leverage. It is in this vacuum that obsession is born. And it is precisely this vacuum that prepares the next lesson. Emotional distance doesn't destroy bonds, it builds long-term power. Emotional distance isn't abandonment, it's positioning. Those who strategically distance themselves create a perspective that immediate involvement doesn't allow for. Machiavelli would say that politics guided by reality, not ideals, shows that lasting bonds aren't born from constant intensity, but from balance. The end justifies the means, and often the most effective way to maintain respect is calculated distance. Think about authority figures. Teachers who didn't mingle too much with their students were more respected. Those who tried to be friends lost the power of their position. The same rule applies in personal life. Distance isn't a lack of love. It's the frame that gives the painting its value. Without space, there's no air. Without air, there's no fire. Emotionally distancing yourself doesn't mean cutting ties, but setting clear boundaries. Better to be feared than loved is reflected here. Respect arises from the clarity that you cannot be accessed at any time, under any circumstances. Virtue and fortune come together at this point. Virtue is having the discipline to maintain boundaries. Fortune is reaping healthier relationships as a result. Loyal, self-made armies don't follow leaders who allow themselves to be invaded by every emotion of others. They follow those who remain firm, even in affection. The calculated use of force, in this case, is learning to say enough without shouting and no without justifying yourself. The curious thing is that this stance creates stronger bonds, because those who remain by your side, even when you're far away, respect the real you. In practice, emotional distance is about cultivating focus on the greater mission. Constant adaptability means knowing how to balance presence and absence according to the situation. Negotiations are won by those who remain calm. Relationships strengthen when there's room to breathe. Life stabilizes when you learn not to react to everything. Distance isn't rejection, it's a long-term power strategy. Think of a Zen master. He's not always available, but when he is, every word carries weight. This is the logic of positioning, not blind distancing. It's this strategic calm that leads to the next lesson. In the end, the calmest always wins, because only he sees the whole battle without getting lost in the details. Calm is the invisible weapon that few perceive. While everyone else is swept away by haste, anger, or fear, those who remain serene gain ground. Machiavelli taught that decisions based on real human nature show that, amidst chaos, those who maintain clarity govern. Politics guided by reality, not ideals, shows that there's no point in having good arguments if you lose yourself in anxiety. The end justifies the means, and in negotiations, the means is to maintain silence until the other person tires. Have you ever noticed how big business people close deals? They leave a blank slate on the table, and the other person, annoyed, ends up giving in more than they'd like. The calmest person doesn't run, they wait. And waiting, in any war, is winning before attacking. In relationships, the logic is the same. Those who remain calm during arguments build respect, even when they don't have all the answers. It's better to be feared than loved here. Fear arises from the realization that you don't give in to emotional attacks. Virtue and fortune meet at this point. Virtue is emotional discipline. Fortune is harvesting stronger bonds because you don't fuel storms. Loyal, self-made armies don't follow explosive leaders. They follow those who remain steadfast, even when the ground shakes. The calculated use of force in this case is not raising your voice, not rushing to justify yourself, not begging to be heard. The calmer one creates space for the other to reveal themselves and often to fall under their own weight. In life, calm is a long-term differentiator. Constant adaptability means not reacting to the world's demands, but responding according to your mission. Think of a doctor facing an emergency. If he panics, he kills. If he remains calm, he saves. Think of an investor. If he reacts to market fear, he loses. If he remains calm, he seizes opportunities others miss. Calm is the invisible fortress that protects energy, attracts respect, and multiplies power. It sustains silence, detachment, and unpredictability. And it is precisely this serenity that paves the way for the final stage of the journey, evolving from raw emotion to inner empire, where self-government is key to governing any environment. True achievement lies not in controlling others, but in governing oneself. This is the transition from emotion to inner empire. Machiavelli already suggested that politics guided by reality, not ideals, is the only way to build lasting power. The end justifies the means, and at this point the means is emotional discipline. Those who master their own heart become impenetrable. Think of historical empires. They didn't collapse due to external force, but due to internal decay. The same is true for each individual. The hardest war is not against visible enemies, but against the emotional ghosts that rob us of focus and clarity. When you understand that silence can be calculation, detachment can be leverage, and coldness can be a filter, the game changes. Empire is born within before being projected outward. And this empire is not built overnight. It requires virtue and fortune in complementary doses. Virtue to sustain emotional discipline, fortune to seize opportunities that arise when others are lost in chaos. The calculated use of force here is to not waste power on petty squabbles. Loyal armies of one's own are only maintained when leadership is stable, and the most difficult leadership is self-leadership. Better to be feared than loved takes on another dimension. It's not just about how others perceive you, but about how you perceive yourself. Respect is born from one's own attitude. Whoever controls your emotions controls your narrative. Whoever controls your narrative controls your life. Ultimately, inner empire redefines everything: time, attention, energy, presence. Constant adaptability becomes natural because you no longer depend on external validation to act. Detachment becomes leverage, silence becomes strategy, indifference becomes protection. What seemed like weakness, not reacting, not chasing, not exposing yourself too much, reveals itself as absolute power. And personal power is exactly that, controlling your own emotions so that everything else becomes secondary. Empire is not the palace you build outside, but the fortress you erect within. Once this state is achieved, nothing from the outside can truly control it. But to reach this level, you must decipher the new code. Only give presence to what builds power and protects peace. There comes a point when life demands a new internal code, almost like a silent law. Only give presence to what builds power and protects peace. This isn't selfishness, it's wisdom. Machiavelli would say that politics guided by reality, not ideals, requires choosing where to shine your light, because where there is light, there is growth. The end justifies the means, and the means here is selectivity. Giving presence is investing energy, and attention is a rare currency. Those who distribute this currency to just anyone end up bankrupt. Think about social media. Those who comment on everything, react to everything, lose value. Those who appear rarely but firmly generate impact. It's simple. Presence is power, but only when it's rare and intentional. This code transforms relationships, business, and even the way you see yourself. Better to be feared than loved is reflected in this practice. Respect is born when people realize you don't give in under any circumstances. Virtue and fortune come together because virtue lies in the discipline of choosing, and fortune lies in harvesting healthier environments. The calculated use of force means not giving in to situations that erode your energy. This is how true and loyal armies are formed. Leaders who know where to go, not those who waste time on distractions. A practical example? Instead of trying to be in every conversation, choose one or two that truly shape your future. The rest is noise. Constant adaptability is the heart of this new code. Circumstances change, so it's necessary to evaluate at every step. Does this build power? Does this protect my peace? If the answer is no, silence is the right choice. The curious thing is that this posture creates a natural magnetism. People begin to value every moment with you because they know it's not given away cheaply. Giving presence to what strengthens and withdrawing from what drains is the secret to keeping your inner strength intact. It's the foundation of a personal empire. But what this code truly reveals is the essence of power, governing yourself. Because in the end, personal power means one simple thing: governing your emotions and leaving everything else secondary. True power isn't found in position, money, or connections. It's found in the ability to govern oneself. Those who master their emotions become immune to external currents. Machiavelli already knew this when he stated that decisions based on real human nature are the only ones that last. Politics guided by reality, not ideals, shows that the world will always try to force a reaction out of you. But if you don't surrender, you remain on the throne of your own life. The end justifies the means, and in this case, the means is self-control. Those who don't govern their emotions lose everything they've built. Those who govern remain steadfast even in the face of chaos. Everything else, opinions, criticism, praise, becomes secondary when you already rule your inner empire. Virtue and fortune meet at this point as the crowning achievement of the entire process. Virtue is the discipline of not giving in to anger, fear, or need. Fortune is the natural harvest that comes when you stand firm while everyone else falters. The calculated use of force is precisely this, not to fight every external battle, but to win every internal one. Loyal, self-made armies don't follow leaders who crumble at the first attack. They follow those who can remain calm when all seems lost. Better to be feared than loved takes on a new meaning here. When you master yourself, you inspire fear and respect, because no one can manipulate someone who is no longer hostage to their own emotions. Constant adaptability completes the cycle. Those who govern their emotions are like water, firm in essence, yet capable of molding without losing their identity. This is true independence. By achieving this state, you cease to be a slave to external factors. Praise doesn't inflame you, criticism doesn't destroy you. You simply move forward, unwavering. And this is the ultimate secret. Personal power is mastering your own emotions. Everything else is detail. Money, status, recognition, all can be taken away, but no one can tear away the empire you build within yourself. And now, having understood this path, the inevitable question arises: how to translate all this learning into an introduction so impactful that it will attract even those who have never considered Machiavelli. Have you noticed that the whole world is trying to force reactions out of you? That every time you explode, give in, or overgive, you're handing over the steering wheel of your own energy? So tell me, how long will you allow others to control your life? What if, starting today, you chose silence over haste, detachment over anxiety, strategic indifference over the need to please? Who would you become if you ruled your emotions like a true empire? Power isn't outside, it's always been within. The question is, will you remain hostage or will you decide to govern? If this video touched you, made sense, or bothered you, let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Sometimes a single sentence you write can be the first step toward the breakthrough you've been waiting for. And remember, subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and continue this journey. Because here, every word is a key to unlocking doors you never knew existed.